Are you struggling with making a positive impact in your community or for the people you serve? Have you tried collaborating with others but still feel like your efforts are falling short? Do you want to learn how to harness technology and compassion to create systemic change? My name is Gamdan, founder of Evolve Catalyst and Charity Mentor. We help small charities build effective systems, achieve sustainable growth, and maximize their impact while avoiding common pitfalls such as fundraising challenges, lack of digital presence, and operational inefficiencies. This enables them to engage more supporters, streamline operations, and effectively fulfill their missions. Today, we are joined by Ali Horriyat, founder of Compassiviste Foundation, who will share his insights on systemic change and global challenges and discuss the collaboration mindset. This conversation will be helpful for those looking to create a lasting impact and understand the power of collaboration driven or in driving systemic change. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more inspiring stories and practical strategies to take your charity to the next level. Ali, welcome to the Charity Leaders Catalyst Show. We're excited to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure being here.
Brilliant. Ali, your transition from the finance sector to founding Compassiviste Foundation reflects a significant personal transformation. So my question is, what motivated your life-changing decision to move into the charity sector, and how has your background shaped your vision?
Okay, to start off, I think we need to start with some definitions. I don't define the charity sector or my move into it in the traditional way that we understand charity. I want to live in a world that requires no charity, because that is the world that the charities are trying to create. If we're just there saying there is inequality, there is discrimination, there are all the social issues that there will always be, and what we're trying to do is just reduce them to a palpable amount that people will not riot or revolution or revolt. If that's the case, I don't want to be part of that. I'm not part of the charity sector. That definition is wrong. I'm part of the sector that says we're here to try to make the social changes and empower the voices and the people so that we can have equality, so that we can overcome discrimination, so that we can live in joy and harmony. Joy is the highest value of any life. So if that's what charity is, then yes, I did transition from finance to charity. And the reason I transitioned is simple. In economics, in finance, there is a concept of diminishing returns. And simply put, you give a child an ice cream, and the first ice cream cone, they're going to love it. You give them a second one, they're going to be a little surprised, what's wrong with my parent? Why did they give me a second one? But they'll still take it and eat it. You give them a third one, they may not want it, but they'll still eat it. They'll still have the ice cream because it's ice cream. And then by the fourth one, they're probably going to either say no or they're going to just puke it out. So what happens is the first one is amazing. As you continue this growth in the ice cream, it doesn't become amazing. So I started out in the finance world because I couldn't get a job. I had several post-grad degrees, and when I went to get a job, they all said, but you have no job experience. And I said, well, yeah, my dad was wealthy. He paid for my schooling. So, of course, I didn't need to work. Why would I have job experience? It's common sense that I wouldn't have job experience. And so they wouldn't hire me because I didn't have job experience. I was overqualified in the education part. So there was this big gap between the two. Nobody would hire me. I had a little bit of money that I just saved or not spent, put it that way. And I ended up putting it in a trading account and trading for myself. One thing led to another. I made money and it grew. At the beginning, it was really exciting to make $1,000, to make $50,000, to make $100,000. You get excited. You feel like you're competing against this system, making the right calls, growing continuously. Then you get to a point where you're making money, you're stressing over the money you're making, your job is becoming really stressful, it's taking over your life, and you're no longer enjoying the funds. There's nothing more you can buy with that excess amount of money. And so you start getting into this personal space where it becomes very depressing. And that's when things go sideways. And before things could go sideways, I looked at the world and I said, no, this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to bet on gold and then hope that there's more suffering in Syria or Yemen or Ukraine or anywhere in the world so that gold spikes so that I make more money, because that's why gold goes up. Gold doesn't go up because everybody's happy. If everybody's happy and everything's great, everything's kind of balanced. And so those things weighed on me, and I said, I need to make a change in the world. I need to use the same philosophy that made me this successful in trading to be that successful in social impact.
Brilliant. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing your story or journey. And just to make it simple, so your idea or perspective, when you look at the charity sector, it is when you deal with the root cause of an issue, not just the symptoms. And that will take us to the next part. I know your perspective on economic issues and poverty and social challenges emphasize a holistic, systemic approach to drive positive change. So my question is, how do you approach global challenges, and what are the most critical areas that need transformation to create a more compassionate and sustainable world or environment?
So the first thing is, the most critical issue we have today has to be global warming. And the reason I say that is not that the other issues are less important, but that we have to understand, you have to incorporate the sustainability issue in whatever you're addressing. Because let's say I'm out here trying to save all the cows in the world, and I'm on a mission and I'm saving all the cows in the world. I built Noah's Ark and I put all the cows in there. If the world is going to have this catalyst moment of climate change and, floods are going to take over and there's going to be nowhere for me to land or save these cows, I'm just going to end up drowning with the cows eventually. So there's no hope in, tackling poverty, in the sense that if you end poverty, if we end global poverty, or if we end animal abuse or any other issue, that the world will be sustainable. That's not a fact. The only fact is, if we can end the climate crisis, then we can incorporate the other issues into this so that the existential issue is resolved. We're facing an existential crisis. I mean, we're going to be no longer. We're going extinct if we don't deal with climate. But to deal with climate, the mistake I see often happening is people target climate from a maybe a tech issue or an innovation issue, much like we have done resolved most of our other issues, especially in medicine. When when an outbreak happens or a disease happens, we don't think, why did this disease happen? We quickly think of, how do we vaccinate for it? How do we cure it? And we're okay with the disease. We're okay with COVID now. COVID can be around. There's no problem with COVID. The problem is, how do we minimize the effects of COVID? So it's never a prevention model. It's always, a curing model. And that's the problem we face today. So the way I want to approach things is to say, to prevent an unsustainable future, we need to address all social issues with environmentalism built into it so that we can have a sustainable future.
Before you continue watching this episode, I want to invite you to book a discovery call. If you are a charity facing challenges and looking for expert support to improve your digital presence and maximize your impact, we are here to help. Visit evolvecatalyst.org to schedule your call today and take the first step towards achieving sustainable growth and financial stability. Now let's get back to the episode. Brilliant, very interesting. So the key point here is global warming, and if we neglect that, so either we will have floods or drought. Is that correct?
If we neglect it, however you want to think about it, is going to be a very difficult future. Just recently, there's no need to reiterate all the scientific papers and journals and everything that has come out in the last 2 decades to explain to people that things are looking worse, and they're going to look so much, worse in a sense that we won't be able to sustain that. And when I say we won't be able to sustain, it's not something of a sci-fi apocalyptic movie, but it's really like this. If you were buying tomatoes for a penny, now you're buying them for 10 cents. There will come a day when the tomato is going to cost $20. And then there will come a day when it will not cost anything because you can't even buy one. They don't exist. When that happens, what are you going to eat? Are you going to eat gold bars? Are you going to eat money? What are you going to eat, right? That's the issue. That's really where we're at. So whether it's the floods, whether it's the shortage of food, whether it's the drought, floods and droughts by themselves are not the issue. The issue is how they affect us, right? When there's a drought, there's no vegetation. When there's a flood, the vegetation gets washed out. So the point is not there's a flood. I can swim through a flood. I can maybe sit on a plank and live through it. But the thing is, be in a shelter somehow. But my food won't. And if my food doesn't, I won't eventually. So the real issue for me for the climate issue is very simple. We die if the ecosystems that we're destroying die. Because we don't live independent of the ecosystems. We live within that. We're part of it. And we seem not to realize that because of our ego as humans.
Brilliant. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about another point, which is a collaboration mindset. I know in your mission, you emphasize the systemic change requires collaboration among people, communities, governments, and organizations for sustainable social and environmental impact. So the question is, how do you encourage partnerships to tackle major global challenges, and why is collaboration essential to your strategy?
I think the world is very interconnected today in the sense that you can be on two ends from Canada to Australia and have all the news in between what's happening everywhere within instants because of technology. And I think that the days of small communities kind of building this little gated cities like we used to have thousands of years ago are over, because back then there was this kind of unaffected behavior globally. So I could, in my city, kill all the animals in my walled city. It wouldn't affect a city, 25 kilometers down or on the other side of the world. But today, the actions we take in New York City, in London, in many of the developed northern hemisphere parts of the world affects the South, because it's so huge. Our impact on you go into a food market, a supermarket, and the impact of the food that has to get delivered there resonates on the other parts of the world. So we can't really live in this isolated state. So collaboration is important because, again, I see charities that are out in Africa, and they're trying to bring an environmentalist mindset to people in dire poverty. And I say to myself, this person has not eaten in 2 days. This person is thinking about food, about staying alive. You cannot come there and tell them that we need to teach you how to be more environmentally friendly or eco-friendly, right? You need to teach them how to survive first. Then you're neglecting completely your base in London, for example, right? Your base in London, you're neglecting that completely, and you're not going after people there and saying, hey, you need to stop driving your car, you need to stop buying plastics, you need to reduce all these things that you're doing, that your overconsumption and your heavy footprint, so that we can have a better future. So in that sense, collaboration is important, because you cannot create progress in isolated communities. They have to interact, they have to understand the effects of one on the other. And we've become this, you see it in economics all the time. There are all these forums that governments attend and business leaders attend, like Davos, G8, all these summits. What are they for? Mainly, they're for economic growth, because that is our religion today. Capitalism, God is money. And so because of that, there are all these very important summits that, the financial world just changes because of them. When the governments come together and decide on interest rates or oil prices or OPEC, all these things are money driven. When are we going to have collaborations that say, let the GCC countries come together instead of OPEC, have an environmental community, and say, how are we going to better our environmental footprint within the Middle East, for example? Does that exist in Europe? No. Does it exist in North America? No. Does it exist in the Middle East? No. In Asia? No. Nowhere. But in every one of those regions and continents and neighboring countries, there are all these pacts, all these methodologies and collaborations on financial sectors. So I think, and they're working. We see them working fine. They're getting wealthier. They're coming together. They're building power and money, right? So in the same way, let's put collaboration towards making a sustainable future. And I think the only problem why this has not been able to happen, I mean, we had the Paris Accord and those meetings that they had, and we have the COP 28, 29, and it's going to go on forever, and nothing changes, and we just get worse. The reason is they're parties, but they don't have a goal, because the goal cannot be achieved, because that goal goes directly against all their other collaborative efforts of making more money. So that's why collaboration is really important.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, and really interested when you highlighted how businesses work in collaboration to succeed, and charitable organization should do the same thing. And the other point that you mentioned is what affect one city or one area can impact the other one, either directly or indirectly. As they say, we live in a small village. Everything is connected to each other, so that's why collaboration becomes essential for charities. In the last conversation, you mentioned that your organization attracts innovative ideas in technology to address complex social and environmental challenges. So what is your organization, or how is your organization using technology to increase its impact on social and environmental projects? Maybe if you can share some examples.
Sure. First of all, I'm a strong believer that technology can be used for good, as well as for all the things that it is being used for currently. And I think it's just a mindset issue. So it's the same as medicine. We can use medicine to heal and cure, and we can use the same medicine that we're using to heal to get high and die and overdose from. So it's not the medicine that's bad. The medicine itself doesn't have an inherent intention to kill us. It is not attacking us. It is us who is using it in a way that can either help us or destroy us. So technology is the same for me. And I believe we're using it at Compassiviste in a way that advances and progresses the future we want to see. So one example I'll give you with our use of technology is our ACT app. And basically what that app does is it's twofold. One is it allows people to, as they join, to get an idea of their carbon footprint. And it's not a calculator per se, because I've gone through many calculators, from the ones at MIT to the one that the EU uses and the one that the UN uses. And you put in the identical information, it'll give you different outputs, sometimes variances of 25%. And the reason is, it's not that they are jokes. It's just that we don't have the accurate science yet to measure exactly what the footprints are. And so you get these variances. And the other problem is people don't understand the numbers. I've been to rallies, environmental rallies, where I've stood there among people and I've asked them, how do you measure carbon? And I threw, things at them, metrics. I said, is it kilometers per square inch? Is it, I said some stupid stuff. And people just responded yes, because they didn't know how to measure. They don't know the science. We don't teach the science. We teach the science of weight. You ask people, how much do you weigh? They can tell you in stones, pounds, and kilos, and they'll understand all three of it. Why? Because it's been emphasized so much, because it's so important. So in that sense, our ACT app, it basically gives you a qualitative approach, response to how your carbon footprint is affecting your life. So your household carbon footprint is, within a certain range of your nation or your region or your city, and how you can improve it based on the responses you made. So if you said, I work 700 meters from my home and I drive there every day, it will give you an option of maybe you should rethink it and walk, or use some other way to get there. Or I drive 2 hours to work every day by myself, and maybe you should carpool, maybe you should take public transport. So it gives you these kind of, again, with food, with travel, with many things, right? It with energy consumption at home, with many things. The other part of the app, which is the part that we built for charities and for people to be able to do more impactful work in the world, is this. It's a space where you can join and put up your cause. So let's say you have a cause and your cause is tackling poverty in Birmingham. And you say, you know what, I'm going to put up my cause somewhere. And you think social media, you think LinkedIn, you think I'm going to post on Instagram, but your following is only, 1,000 people, friends and family. Are you going to generate that much of an impact for people to come into what you're trying to do and make a huge difference? No. And if you want to, you have to spend a lot of money. One of the biggest expenses for charities is their marketing and advertising budget, which shouldn't be, because you shouldn't have to go and beg people to respond to what you're trying to do that is good. People should be seeking you out, And so, in that sense, we've created the space where you go up there and you say, okay, I'm starting this, movement to tackle poverty in Birmingham, specifically to one specific issue. And you post that up there. Now, the app will have millions of users because it's global. It's something that, goes across all the spaces and fields that we have. I can be traveling and going to Birmingham for a week. And I could say, hey, let me see what's going on in Birmingham. I really care about poverty. So I'll click on poverty. I'll click a radius from my hotel, 10 miles, 5 miles, 10 kilometers. And I'll say here, and then it'll show me yours, and it'll show me another person's. And for example, Sarah, and it'll say, Sarah, and you are both tackling poverty. Great. I'll click on them. It'll open the page up. I'll see what you're doing. If I like to, I'll attend. If I don't like to, I'll attend Sarah's. It's my choice. And I could do this online, digitally, by supporting financially. I could do it in person. So if you have a rally, if you have a petition, if you have things that you need people to attend a city meeting for, or a personal meeting in your office or something, you can put it all in there and you connect people together. I think one of the most important parts of our usage of tech is to bring people together, as opposed to allowing charities to continue this competitive nature. I mean, the charities are acting just like businesses, and the biggest purpose for a charity is its own, self-sustenance over the cause that it began with. I mean, again, in that model, you could begin with tackling poverty. 2 years down the road, it becomes, I need to make sure we bring in this much money because our overhead, my salary and my staff and my mortgage payments, all these things cost money. So I need to make sure we get our overhead settled. And then whatever's left over, great, we'll help the cause. And so to get your overhead, now you're competing with Sarah. Sarah has staff, you have staff, you're both competing for people's funds, donations, and whoever has the catchier advertising technique or marketing is going to win that penny, right? And the idea is that also distances the donor from the cause, because you're kind of marketing, you're advertising to them, you're using the same tactics that Pepsi and Coke use to get people to drink Pepsi or Coca-Cola. You're no longer talking about the issue at hand. So our tech usage, on the one hand, is in that way to bring people together, and on the other hand, on a grander scale, through our convention and all our other programs that we have on our website, basically what we do is we incorporate tech into all our arms to allow people to advance their causes, their movements, our cause, and basically make the world a more compassionate place using the available tools that we have today intelligently.
Before you continue watching this episode, I want to invite you to book a discovery call. If you are a charity facing challenges and looking for expert support to improve your digital presence and maximize your impact, we are here to help. Visit evolvecatalyst.org to schedule your call today and take the first step towards achieving sustainable growth and financial stability. Now let's get back to the episode. Brilliant. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So it's an app that brings people together. It connects people. So you can start either promoting or working on the cause that you are targeting. Very interesting. And is it like a mobile app or a web application?
Both. We have both because it's easier on the mobile app to search causes, join, donate. Touch of a screen, and you click a couple of places, and boom, you're supporting, you're helping, you're making change, right? But then if you're trying to write up your cause and creating a cause and all those things, I think most people will be using the web format because the keyboard and the screen size and everything else. So we've created the web format mainly. You can use both interchangeably, but mainly because we thought people will want to put up all their things on the web and then just use the mobile for kind of going through stuff.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I have got another point to mention, which you talked about when we had the first meeting, and which is an exit strategy and often associated with business.
Mm-hmm.
So how do the idea of an exit strategy applies to the charity sector? So maybe this could be a new term for people in the charity sector.
Okay. First of all, let me explain exit strategy. So, in the business world, especially in my world, with my fund, I would invest in ideas that I thought were profitable. It wasn't so much the impact. It wasn't so much how does it help or anything like that, or what is the purpose of it, although that plays into the profit because the more purposeful, the more people want it, the more profit. But the idea was how much money can we make from this investment? So when you ask the question, how much money can I make from my investment? It automatically holds within it that you are looking to gain back your investment multiple fold, which means I'm going to invest £100, $100 into your idea. You're telling me that within 2 years, my 100 is going to become 145. I think that's a good return. I'm going to invest. So, closed. That's it. Done deal. I get my 145, no more. And I'm happy, you're happy, everybody's happy. That's an exit strategy. Now, it's more complicated than that, but in simple terms, that's an exit strategy. In the charity world, that's severely lacking because you will notice a lot of charities, the mentality, the mindset's lacking because you'll notice a lot of charities pride themselves on the 100 years or 80 years or 200 years that they've been around. And I think to myself, I say, okay, you've been collecting donations to tackle this one issue that you're tackling. And you've been around for 150 years trying to tackle that one issue and you haven't been successful. Why am I giving you money? That is bad. That's just bad. That's bad investment right there for me. Now, some charities don't fall into this because, for example, you have things like the Red Cross that says, okay, we're going into disaster zones, for, say, earthquake relief or hurricane relief or something like that. That's different. That doesn't have an exit strategy because these things happen and we have to have a team that goes in and helps people. So that's a completely different thing. But then you have charities that, for example, are there a charity will set up in London to support a animal shelter. And what they're doing is they're expanding the animal shelter and growing the capacity of the animal shelter. and putting all this money into infrastructure and development and redesigning it and actually physically making it bigger so that instead of 100 dogs and 200 cats, it can now take 500 dogs and 1,000 cats. What do you think is going to happen? There are going to be more dogs and more cats in that shelter. That's not fixing the problem. You're just growing you're mushrooming the problem, right? Because you're taking in more, you're growing the space. The way to stop the problem is to say, okay, we're not growing the shelter, but we're going to take all this money and try to look at where the root problem of this is, where the problem is. Is it a legal issue? Is it a loophole that the government is unaware of that is causing people to bring all these dogs and cats into the market, and then they go in, people just throw them away, or they don't want them and they'll, let them off in the middle of a park, and then now we have to take them into shelter. What is, how can we mitigate this legally? How can we resolve this? That is an exit strategy, because the goal of that charity is to no longer have that shelter. Dogs and cats should be treated in a way in that neighborhood that they will never need to be sheltered. And even if they ever needed to be sheltered, there would be some emergency program within that community that can take those animals in and minimize the damage. So charities are not doing that, though, because they're not thinking of the exit strategy. They're just thinking of, how do we save right now? There's all these dogs and cats on the streets. They're getting killed. Whatever's happening, they're being put down by vets. How do we make sure that they have more space? Okay, if you keep thinking that way, you're going to be around for 100 years. And that one building is going to turn into 10 buildings. And then you're going to be really wealthy too, because the buildings, they go up in value. And so you're going to have more assets. And you're just going to keep growing. And you're going to be this monster organization that is trying to, help. You look at, the WWF, and I don't see animal abuse reducing in the world. I don't see factory farming reducing. So I ask myself, thank you to WWF for all of the awareness it has raised. Thank you for all the fighting it's doing. But it is time the WWF brings in a financial team mindset that can say, okay, we need to resolve this problem. We need to address it in a way that we are going to reduce the harm to animals, not just spend all the money on the marketing campaigns and the advertising campaigns and continuously try to shelter all these animals, go and buy out a whole factory farm and save the thousands of cows that are in there. Okay, that's great, but how often can we do this? How many times over are we going to do this? And there's going to continuously be this problem. So the exit strategy, in a nutshell, is find how you can put yourself out of business, because that is when you've succeeded as a charity. When you close the door and say, there's no reason for me to exist anymore, that is when you've done right. You've done well. You've made a difference. But until then, it's a sad story.
Yeah, very interesting concept. But the names you mentioned are just for demonstration, to demonstrate the point. So
yeah, like the Red Cross, that's what they're about. I mean, it's not a matter of that's what they do. You cannot look at them and say, "Where's your exit strategy?" It's kind of like, some things are necessary to our environment. But I do say, because you said that, I will say no to one part of it. I do hold some charities accountable, and I'm not shy to make my stand, because I think that is one of the problems we have. We're so scared of bigger charities or bigger governments or bigger organizations to cancel us or to say, hey, how dare you, and things like that, that we kind of hide behind this shield. Oh, I'm just using this name as a demonstration. I'm not. I really mean it when I say the WWF should do better, because they have the funds, they have the means, they're doing great work, but this is the time of need. It's no longer the time of awareness. It's no longer the time of bringing reason to public. It's a time of action. Everybody in the moment of power right now needs to act. It's the same thing as war. In a time of war, there's no need for a person to come and say, hey, we should love each other. Let me write a song about love. It's not going to work in the middle of, people killing each other. You need a powerful institution to come in, stop the war, act on it. Once it's stopped, then bring in the support systems that kind of help people. That's what happened in Rwanda. In the genocide in Rwanda, look at Rwanda now. It's a model for everybody in the world. It's the safest country in Africa. Why? It didn't happen because they all killed each other and then they decided they got tired and they said, okay, let's be friends again. No, because an international committee came in, they stopped the fighting, and then they allowed people to place into action all of the healing methodologies that worked. And now we have Rwanda. So if we don't act like serious disruptors and breakers in this system, unfortunately, all of the glamorous Instagram pages, they're not going to heal us. They're not going to make the world a better place. So yes, I wish all of the activists who really are out there pushing the discussion and pushing the actions have the kind of powers and abilities that the big spaces have, because it's upon them to lead. And if they're not leading actively, who are people going to follow?
Brilliant. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So basically, it's when we say a mission is accomplished or we fixed the issue. Before we wrap up this episode, do you have a final message you would like to share with our audience?
I can share the Compassiviste mindset, and that is compassionate activism. And the goal there is we have to be angry. We have to feel that the end is near and we are causing this individually and collectively through our actions, through our activism, through our silence, more than anything else. Most of us are happy being silent because we are scared. I think the fears that will come in 20, 30, 40 years are going to be so much worse than what we're feeling now. And so I beg people to say enough, to get up, and to use all of the non-violent powers available to them by voting with their money, choosing sustainable products, shifting the markets with the actions they take. I mean, if we all just don't buy cars anymore, what do you think is going to happen? Economies will shift. So we have the power individually and collectively. If we start individually, it will resonate collectively. This is what happened with Gandhi. This is what happened with Muhammad in Islam. This is what happened with Martin Luther King. All of these people, they started as an individual. They got up and they said, I don't like this. And a shift happened. And that shift became either a spiritual cause or a national cause or a social cause, but people gathered and it changed. So we each can be the Martin Luther Kings, the Gandhis, because it's within each of us to act. And that's the most important message, the activism that follows our compassionate mindset. I believe everybody has the compassion within them, and it's showing. It's showing because there are people like yourself putting all this effort into making this show, into bringing this to the world, into getting people to activate charitably. So everybody is resonating with this. There's no lack of funding for charities. I mean, people are giving so much money to charitable causes and donating and helping. The only thing we need to do now is come together and make that stand to make the shift towards a sustainable future.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your message or final message. The other question is, where can people find you or learn more about your organization and the work you do?
Because Compassiviste is a unique word, we're lucky enough to have Compassiviste as our handle and website and everything in that one word. So if you remember Compassiviste, It's at Compassiviste on all our socials, and our website's compassiviste.com, where you go in there and in the tabs, the charity Compassiviste Foundation is there, the publishing house is there, the conventions there, the arts, everything is in that one website, all under one octopus.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing your contact information. That brings us to the end of this episode. A big thank to you, our amazing guest Ali, and for sharing your experience and insights, and to all of you, our dedicated viewers and listeners, for turning in. If you found value in today's discussion, I invite you to join our charity community by subscribing or following us for more insights and inspiration. Thanks again, Ali, and thank you all for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep making a difference and stay inspired.
Thank you.